Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. In our last episode, we conducted some experiments with jet planes and we achieved the space flight. Unfortunately, we were not able to return. Since then, I've conducted some research and now I present to you LOL Plane Mark III. This plane was thoroughly tested and is able to achieve stable orbit and return safely to the surface of planet Kerbin. Regardless, we're still conducting some small tests before launch. Mainly we're testing if our action group is actually doing what it is supposed to do and is switching between jet engine and the rocket engine, and it's working perfectly. Now we're trying to take off. The takeoff is a bit heavy as the plane doesn't have enough surfaces to lift. It can fly and it can achieve orbit, but with slight difficulties. As before, our ascent pattern will be as follows. We're going to ascend to approximately 11,000–12,000 meters. Then we're going to level our flight and try to gain as much speed as possible. And then, approximately at 26–27,000 meters, we're going to switch to our rocket engine and burn for the orbit. During our stage where we're gaining speed, we'll try to keep our plane as leveled as possible so that it is gaining speed but also gaining altitude at some degree, but not as fast, so that we don't lose all air for our engines and don't have flameouts, because flameouts are bad and they make you lose control of your vehicle, which then plummets down to the surface and kills the Kerbin within. And we are almost at 20,000. Our speed is approaching 600–700 meters per second. And we're trying to level out a little bit so that we are gaining more speed than altitude. And it is working quite okay. We're already at 1100 meters per second. And almost 1300. During our test flight, the speeds over 1400 meters were achieved, and we're already exceeding it. We are closing to 1600, and we almost had a flameout. Fortunately enough, we were able to catch it in time and switch to the rocket engine and prevent the disaster. Now we are going to try to raise our apopsis higher than 70,000 meters so that we are out of the atmosphere and officially in space. To do that, we're just raising our nose and burning more or less upwards. But as you can see, our trajectory doesn't change much, because at such speeds it would take much higher thrust to change it. But we successfully done it and raised our apopsis to 85,000 meters, and now we're creating a simple maneuver node which will let us circularize our orbit. Well, it's not circular, but it's an orbit. And now we're just going to time warp around Kerbin to see the beautiful sunrise and our spaceship / plane thingy in the rays of the morning sun. Isn't it beautiful? Alright, time to return home. Wilwyn Carbon is obviously a bit frustrated that he won't be able to spend days upon days in the orbit, but there are people who are waiting his return, because if this test is deemed feasible, then there will be more funding and probably a whole space station which will allow us to refuel this vehicle in orbit and maybe even go to other planets. So we start the usual retrograde burn, which will bring our periapsis in the atmosphere and will allow us to land. Here we are, already at 60,000 meters, and at 50, at 40, 35, and here we are conducting some braking maneuvering. Basically, by simply turning our craft left and right, we are going to drop some of our velocity. This happens because we are increasing the size of our craft, basically, and it increases the drag and loses the speed. But as we can see, it doesn't go exactly as we plan, and we were going to splash down. But we still have some of the jet fuel, so we can use our trusted jet engines to get us to the land. At this point, we also realized that our plane, although having difficulties with lift, is a great glider. It can glide at very low speeds, at very low altitudes, but for a very long time. It is one of the properties which we are going to use to achieve soft landing. And we are burning a little bit every other minute to make sure that our craft doesn't end up in the water. We're not burning continuously to make sure that we don't gain too much speed and too much altitude, because after all, we want to land and we don't really want to overshoot the continent. And we're fairly close to the land. Let's wait a little bit so that we are not too close to the shore. And yeah, looks like a good time to cut down the engine and to slowly descend. Our speed is lower than 90 meters per second, and our vertical speed is just above 10 meters per second. So we are descending at approximately 11-12 meters per second. We're going to let it go for quite some time, occasionally flaring up our nose to make sure that we are losing more and more horizontal velocity and vertical velocity. And as you can see, it works fairly well. We're already at 50 meters per second, a little bit more. Altitude is 1700 meters, and as the ground there is very close to the sea level, it's a good approximation of our actual altitude over ground. And even at 4 times acceleration, you can see how slowly we are moving. When observed in real time, it feels like the plane doesn't move at all. It just floats there and doesn't move left, right, up or down. But because of the magic of video editing, you're not forced to watch it for approximately 10 minutes it took in real time. And we're very close to the ground. And touchdown. Nailed it. Perfect landing. Absolutely perfect. Nothing broke off. Nothing exploded. Our scientists will be very happy. And we are reaching this point where I have to say that this is the end of the current episode. In the next episode, we are going to start constructing our space station, which will allow us to refuel the SSTO which we just built, and will allow it to travel to further destinations and bring Kerbans to even stranger places than the ones we already have seen. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like, dislike, and comment this video in the section below. My name is Darlock, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.